Welcome to season 2, episode 2 of the Mass Business Podcast. My name is Matt Ward, and I am your host. I'm so excited to bring you a good friend of mine today. We're going to be talking about all kinds of things, including knowing your strengths. Let me ask you a question. What happens when a type A personality goes to art school? They become a business imager. Captured on a camera or created on a computer, your business image and brand elements are a vital part of your success. Saraphina combines photography and graphic design services to help her clients achieve their goals. She's a transplant from Western Mass and currently lives on the Cape. I'm excited to share my friend Saraphina with you on this episode of the Mass Business Podcast. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome to the Mass Business Podcast, where small business owners, also known as risk takers, share their stories about the growth of their business and themselves. Our interviews and our content is focused on growing a small business and understanding networking and referrals. I say it all the time, and I'll say it again today. You never know where your next referral will come from. All right, we're back at it. Season 2, episode 2 with Saraphina. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
So excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining me. In 30 seconds or less, can you share with our listening audience on their favorite podcast app or our viewers on YouTube what exactly it is you do?
Sure. Basically, my company, Images by Saraphina, is a virtual art department for the kind of companies that don't have one in-house. In the corporate world, when you need something created, you send it to the art department and they send it back to you ready to go. But if you are a solopreneur or a small business owner, you don't have that art department, and that's where I come in.
I think you said a dirty word there. You said corporate world. I know, right? So as I always like to tell people, I think that people, small business owners have left the corporate environment because they wanted 3 things: more money, more time, and more freedom. And yet they're not getting any of those things. And there's so many reasons why they aren't getting those things. One of the reasons why they're not getting time is because they're not outsourcing to an art department the images that they need done, and they struggle to prioritize the things that they need to do. Talk to me a little bit about your business journey. How long have you been in business?
Officially hung the shingle in 2019 to be solo.
Yeah.
But, this was definitely another dirty word, side hustle for many people.
It's a side hustle. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing this in some capacity since 2008.
Mm-hmm. Oh, since 2008. Right. Okay. So were you like most of the people I know in small business that when you started your small business, you basically didn't know what you didn't know? Like you knew the graphic design stuff, right? But
yeah, I knew how to do what I do, but I did not know how to run a business for sure. And I also didn't think I wanted to, which is the part that shocked me a few years ago when I realized, oh God, I really want to be out on my own and doing this for myself.
Because you wanted the control, right? You wanted the freedom. You wanted the ability to make the decisions that you wanted to make that you felt were different than what those people you were working for were making.
Yeah. I mean, when you find yourself thinking your boss is wrong or I would have done it a different way, not necessarily wrong, but different. And that gets frustrating after a while.
Absolutely. So you've been doing this now full time since 19, 2 years-ish.
Yeah.
19 was awesome. 2020 smacked us in the back of our head or upside our face, however we want to envision that.
What do you mean? What happened?
Yeah, nothing, no, nothing, nothing's just nothing, something with a beer thing or something. I don't know, some Corona thing or something. So how have you evolved in your business in that short period of time?
Well, I used to think that I needed to stick to my geographical area.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely focused here on Cape, and
Mm-hmm.
occasionally in Western Mass, I'd go home to visit my family and make it almost like a work trip and try to do some work out there too. But I never thought in a million years that I would ever work beyond the borders of Mass. But because of the ability of COVID making everyone forced to go on the internet all the time now, it's one big community, and I've been able to grow my business that way.
And so how are you growing your business? I mean, I know you're doing networking.
Networking,
Yeah.
it's a
Like a
lot.
lot of it?
Yeah, at least 2 networking events a day. And then
Nice.
lots of follow-up one-to-ones with people.
So how do you manage all of that? I mean, 2 a day. I mean, I'm usually like a super connector in the sense that I'm connecting with so many people in a given week or day, and I have certain processes that I follow for follow up. How are you managing to keep those numbers up like you are?
Well, I have an amazing calendar. I plug in, I find the meetings at work. So I definitely try a lot that don't always fit. And if I feel like the meeting is good, then I keep it on my schedule.
Hmm.
And I don't make one-to-ones with just anyone. I make the one-to-ones with people I are, within a few minutes of meeting someone, whether you want to continue to talk to them. And those are the people that I follow up with. So I keep it quality, not quantity, I guess.
Oh, that's interesting. So, do you ever reach out to people that you've never talked to try and get a one to one? And what I mean by that is, say you're in a Facebook group, right?
Oh, okay.
You see somebody posting or something. Do you ever reach out to them and see if they want to do a one to one?
I have done that through LinkedIn. The LinkedIn group
Yeah.
have been
Hmm.
effective, but there at least a conversation has taken place through texting on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because I've recently been doing these things I refer to as reach outs, and they're not very effective.
Well,
And what's interesting about that is the lack of conversation in advance that you mentioned. Um, and I think the key takeaway with this is there a piece of synergy? It doesn't have to be a synergy around business. It just has to be synergistic in conversation.
yeah. Otherwise, it's essentially a cold call, right? And we all
Yeah.
know you have to make 1,000 of those to maybe make one of them work, and that's a lot
Yeah.
of time. So if I don't necessarily need them to be an ideal client or an ideal referral partner, if I know I'm going to have a good conversation with them, that's
Hmm.
my time, and I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. And so that obviously keeps your spirits up because you're not running aground all the time with bad networking conversations.
Right, right.
That's always
Yeah,
interesting.
no, it's not. If you're having a good time, then it doesn't feel like work, and it's not all that tiring, and it's easy to keep it up.
But I mean, networking has the word work in the middle of it, but it doesn't have to feel like work,
It does.
right?
So if you enjoy the person's company, I mean, that
Yeah.
difference does it make?
So that's I think the whole right. That's the entire premise of my new book, right? The high five effect, how to do business with people who bring you joy. Like it's just straight up like I might not even effectively be doing business, just hanging around people that make me laugh, make me smile, make me want to high five. I'm so done with people that drain my energy.
I agree. I mean, I if they're not bringing any value to your world, and that value could simply be a good conversation over a cup of coffee, then I mean, it's torture, right? If you're not having a good time, if you're forcing yourself to do, I might as well kept the day job I left. If I'm just being forced to do the thing I don't want to do, the point of having
Yeah.
going out on your own and having freedom means you have the freedom to say yes or no.
No, and that's a good point. I mean, so for me, it's interesting because I define freedom as doing what I want, when I want, where I want, and how I want. And 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 it, I don't like the restrictive nature of many things about being a business owner. And so I design my business around this idea of flexibility because to me that's what freedom is. You see, it's interesting. I had this conversation with somebody the other day. Money is not the most important thing to me. money for me is a means to never go back to poverty where I came from.
Mm.
And so I'm only looking for insulation and insurance to not go back from a financial standpoint. For me, I was so married to my business when I had the agency for 16 years that eventually I moved it. I got it down to a 3-day work week for myself. And the reason I did that was because I was tired of working 7 days. Right. And as they say in small business ownership, it's a part-time job, right? It's 12 hours a day.
Right.
What
Yeah. No,
one thing, what one thing do you know today that you wish you knew when you started your business?
uh, um, that exposure is something you die of, not something that gets your business going.
Oh, that's so great. We talk about that in the speaking world all the time. They
Mm.
say, "Oh, you'd like to come speak? You have to fly here. You have to pay for your hotel, but you'll get great exposure." I'm like, "Yeah, many people die from exposure every year."
I mean, so I have a creative job, right? I mean, it's the same thing. That whole starving artist sort of vibe. Like, you're not going to be appreciated in your time. They drill that into you, and then you know, I have a mortgage to pay. That's not going to
Yeah,
work for me. Like, I don't need to
yeah,
be rich, but I would like to be comfortable. And no, you're going to pay me for my work.
yeah, exactly. And so that's an interesting approach, and I think that's a massive takeaway for people listening who are thinking about starting a business or are very early on in their business. Be careful what you give away. You certainly have the luxury to give away whatever you want. It's your choice. It's your business. You have the freedom to do so. Just remember that there's often a cost associated with that. And I'm not talking about the hard cost of actually producing that item or the labor cost. I'm literally talking about the lost opportunity cost and the training of the customer contact that you're training, because we train people how to treat us.
Mm.
And that goes in business as well, right? More people we let, talk to us certain ways. I talk about this a lot of times with bad clients, right? You need to fire bad clients that mistreat you. Like, I have one client, and the very first thing I had her do was fire a client. The very first week she was working with me, I had her fire a client.
That's a hard one.
It's not so it's hard in execution, and I walked her through how to do this. It's hard emotionally in execution, but what happened was it cleared the entire space in her head.
Mhm.
This client was occupying my client's mind and not paying full rate for that space. That's not cool.
No,
You're not renting space in my brain for free like that. No. Like, you go to bed at night thinking about this client or this job, you
that's the
really ought to
worst.
start thinking of yeah, you really ought to start thinking about firing that client. I'm not saying you should, but maybe you need to think about firing that client. And that's the struggle. In season 2, we're talking sub theme around knowing your strengths. Tell me a little bit about what your greatest strengths are, Saraphina.
Well, I'm definitely an optimistic person, which I think helps with the creativity side. Like, I get enthusiastic about things, and I always think stuff is going to be great. I always think stuff is a good idea. Even when I'm proven wrong later, it kind of is like, well, okay, great. Now I know that. Isn't that great? And I just move on. um, so those will be the perky things about me that I think are my strengths. I'm also very,
So,
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead, finish what you were going to say.
Already lost my train of thought for this.
Oh, my bad, my bad. So, tell me about how you discover your strengths.
So you have to know it about yourself and be comfortable with the idea that that's something you're good at, which
Hmm.
is sometimes a hurdle in and of itself. It has to be something that other people also recognize in you, because if you don't have one, then the other doesn't really make sense. And then, to me, the most important piece is it has to bring you joy. Because if you can't stand the thing you're good at that other people know you're good at, but if you hate it, it's not a strength. It's a noose around your neck. So
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Like say, if networking is something you don't enjoy, but you're good at, it doesn't mean it's a strength.
No, and it's just gonna be the thing you dread all the time.
That's so powerful. Knowing you got to know it's a good quality that you have, meaning self-awareness, right?
Mhm.
You got to know that others others see the quality in you, and that it brings you joy is the number 3 thing. That's so great. I I never thought about understanding or knowing my strengths in that way, right? Because what I see there is I see sort of self-awareness is the first part, but then others being aware is the second part. So are you good enough that others actually see this as part of what you do well?
Mhm.
Notice I said well, not badly, right?
Right.
And then the third thing is I think the joy component there is so interesting. What makes that be that trifecta?
Because that's what helps you sleep at night. So for anyone who's ever changed their career, I mean, complete change in their career, has to understand this, right? If you can be really good at it and everyone can think you're good at it, but if you hate it, you're not sleeping, you're not comfortable, you're not having a good life, you're not enjoying your day to
Mm,
day, you're miserable. And what is the point in that? So if the things that you're doing, the things you're recognized for, also bring you joy, your life is complete. Which is why a lot of people just realize one day the track they're on is wrong and they switch it. And it's just a really important part to being a human being who likes their day.
I've noticed that already just in season 2, episode 2 here, just 2 episodes into season 2, that this conversation about knowing your strengths is actually deeper than what I thought it would be, right? It's more because knowing your strengths and the things that you're good at, they're not always um easy to find, right? They're not. I might be able to hit a hammer really, really well, right? And I might be good at that, and I can measure, and so I can be a carpenter, right? Um, that is probably something that I could easily identify. But what's interesting with service-based business professionals who don't have a skill set like in carpentry per se, a physical skill set, is that the skills that we often have, I think in some ways are, they're soft skills, right? They're the relationship skills, or their follow up, or it might be customer service, or the ability um uh to interact with people, that are, how about the ability to interact with difficult people, right? That's a challenge too. And these things are like this is kind of it's just it's a discovery method for me. Like I'm seeing this with people on this season of the podcast, and it's surprising to me how deep these conversations are going. You know, we could probably write a book on that 3-way thing there. The 3 components of knowing your saying. I wrote them down here. Knowing this is a good quality you have, others seeing the quality in you, and the third is that it brings you joy. It's like a mic drop moment there. Boom. That's good stuff, Seraphina. Um, tell me, you know, the strengths that you have, do they benefit you in other areas of your life as well?
Well, being an optimist does make your life a lot easier. I'm not always afraid the other shoe is going to drop, as they say. So that is definitely handy. And being enthusiastic can help too, because if you're, for instance, I'm a morning person, but most people in my world are not. But I'm ready to go after, 3 sips of coffee and I'm ready to go. I can hit the ground running. So other folks who are, don't talk to me before my third cup people, I do tend to at least get them to smile and be a little less curmudgeon-y first thing in the morning. So there are times where even in my personal life, or even if I'm just like visiting family or friends, the things about me does kind of keep the room happy.
When we think about your strengths, do you ever sit still, almost like meditate and think about the strengths that you have and how other people see them in the world?
That's a deep question. Look at you. I am a terrible meditator. Um,
Let me tell you this. When I asked David Verdon this question on episode 1 of this season, he said, the way you asked that question, I feel like I need to do it more.
Well, I was like, oh God, is that my homework? Do I need to report back?
Funny enough, I felt like when I asked the question that I asked the question because I don't do it enough myself.
Okay, then we're all in the same camp, right?
No, we are. Which I think is one of the most important takeaways about this. I wrote in the new book that we think we're alone in what we think. We think we're the only one with the challenge that we have. Until we start opening up to other business owners and we realize, you know what? They have that exact same challenge. And so when I ask this question about saying we all want to sit and think more about these types of things.
See, that is another reason why networking is so great. Because you might meet someone who may or may not be a great fit for your business, but they're also doing the same thing you are. They're at 2:00 on a Tuesday on a Zoom screen from who knows where, talking about what they do, trying to meet other people. And so you get to sort of have that, like, I don't have any coworkers, right? But I do have these people that I network with. So there's a community, there's a camaraderie there. And it's like,
yeah.
Actually,
in season 1, we talked a little bit about how there are sometimes people that show up to networking groups not for the referrals. They show up because being a solopreneur is a lonely business and they want to surround themselves with other people who have like-minded problems and issues that they have.
That's associations are great for that too. Like, yeah, I'm a part of photography association in Cape Cod, and it's like, well, they're all photographers and they don't need me for any reason other than let's talk about how crazy it is to be a photographer in this day and age. Like, it's just nice to have that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And so I guess the question is, are you going to sit still one day and just think a little bit more about your strengths and how other people view them too?
I sure am. And then I am going to email you and I'm probably going to tell you what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that brings me full circle around to your business. As a small business owner, we all struggle with certain things. What do you think your biggest struggle with small business is these days?
Well, as a business who serves other businesses, the economy right now and the way the world is, because of that thing we're not talking about, it's so. What I do used to be something that was always 90 to 120 days out. You're working on something that the business doesn't actually need yet. They need it later. And so there's not a lot of stress. There's plenty of time to try different things out. You even have time for focus groups, right? But right now, everything's so reactive. So if you're trying to just mitigate the need now, it gets to be, you're always under the gun. And that can be really stressful, not just for me, but for my clients, because their businesses are under the gun because they're constantly in flux because they don't know what's going on. And there's a labor shortage, all these other things going on. That is the tricky part, I think. And I don't think I'm alone in that one.
No, you're not. And so then how do you manage that, right?
The optimism comes shining through.
Yeah, I guess. I guess it is.
You know it's going to be okay eventually, and you just keep going.
I'm a pretty optimistic person too, Saraphina. And then I met my good friend Jason, and I was like, I am not optimistic at all. He was like 10x on the optimism scale of what I am, as if that's even a possibility. I'm like, he's just walking around on cloud 9 all the time. It's just like, I don't know how you do it.
Happiness is a choice, right? So you just gotta.
Yeah. I think it is, and I think he probably subscribes to that same approach to life in general. What one of the things I always like to ask our guests about business, and business growth matters a lot when it comes to things like software and things we use on a regular basis. So, throwing out the industry specific design software you use, not considering that,
Right, right.
what piece of software is a game changer in your business? One that you would recommend for other business professionals that if I had to come in and take it away from you, you'd be pretty upset.
Oh, I've got two. The
Hmm.
one that I think everybody knows. I think you should have an automatic calendar, and
Okay.
it's that whatever. There's a ton of them out there, but one of those
Hmm.
like here to book an appointment, and it emails you to tell you like, hey, you have an appointment. That
Hmm.
makes that saves so much time because the going back and forth with emails or what day is good for you and looking at each other's calendars, that's a nightmare. Just have it online and let people click. That would very much upset me if it disappeared. But the other thing I use a lot that I don't know a lot of people know about, the Advanced Marketing Institute has this website. I don't know, it's really software, but they have this website called the Headline Analyzer. So whenever I'm doing a blog post or I'm sending out an email to my list, or sometimes even for LinkedIn posts, I put the headline in there and it'll tell me whether or not it's going to get traction, whether or not the words I'm using are going to be interesting to the audience I'm intending them for. And that is really handy. It'll increase your open rate and stuff like that when you're sending out emails. So
That's
that's
such a
really,
great tip. Such
so
a great tip. We're going to make sure we link to that in the show notes
yeah,
so
you bet.
that all you listeners and viewers can check it out and see that. That's going to be on the AMI website. That's awesome. I, I happen to, I vaguely recall through a networking conversation, you're a big reader, yes? And do
Yes.
you read business books?
Yes, I read a lot of different things and
Uh-huh.
books as well. Yeah.
So, what one business book would you recommend that other listeners actually read and get value from?
Let's see. I've got just off the top of my shelf here more by Matt Ward.
Okay, I appreciate that. But moving on to another book.
Uh,
Okay.
the one actually that I'm almost finished with, it's actually on my bedside table right now, is The New Builders. That is about how the face of entrepreneurship has changed and is continually different than what most people presume it is in America right now. And what's great about that book is it was being written as COVID was hitting. So the book actually discussed how COVID has changed business ownership and entrepreneurship.
Oh,
So The
that
New
sounds
Builders,
fantastic.
that's a really enjoyable read. And it goes into like the history of stuff. It talks, and it actually, part of the book is based in Massachusetts. It talks about Lowell and how
Mm.
the shoot, the factories in Lowell.
Yeah,
And
they were doing textiles, right?
yes,
There, yeah.
so they talk about that and how that changed the face of a lot of things. And it's a really fascinating read. So
That's really cool. We'll make sure we link to that in the show notes as well, so you folks can check it out. We'll make sure we have the link over to Amazon for that. And do you ever listen to Audible books or audio books?
I actually really enjoy the act of reading.
Yeah, sometimes I actually read the book with the audio book on, so I can follow along and hear. So right now, recently, somebody gave me Matthew McConaughey's book because I always tease in my talks Matthew McConaughey. And I always say, all right, all right, all right. But anyway, they these two people in networking that as they referenced in the gift receipt from Amazon, the two blondes, they gifted me Matthew McConaughey, and I just so happened to go look at the Audible website because everybody wants to know, okay, who does the voice, and this is Matthew McConaughey reading his book,
That's
and
always
it sounds well when it's Matthew McConaughey, it's really great. So the sample they had online was fantastic. I thought that was awesome. Yeah. Good stuff. This has been great talking to you and really understanding, the things that you do. I mean, you drop some super valuable knowledge bombs, especially this idea about the three components of really knowing your strengths. And I think sometimes as business owners, we don't necessarily take the time to know our strengths, and that's a struggle, right? And I think if we can sit still and think about them, we can dig into them a little bit deeper. Maybe we'll find that what we thought was a strength isn't necessarily a strength or as strong as we thought it was. Maybe I can build it up more. Um, or maybe we discover a whole new strength, right? Because it's not like we need 3 strengths or 2 strengths or ones, right? We could have a lot of them. But I think if we go in alignment with what you said, it's knowing that this is a good quality you have, knowing that others see this quality in you, and the third is that it brings you joy. And that alone makes me happy that you have this great model of components for knowing your strengths. That's awesome. I think that's fantastic. Saraphina, if the folks listening on their favorite podcast app or watching on our YouTube channel want to get in touch with you, they want to network with you, they want to follow what you're doing, they want to get in touch and for graphic design services or photography services down on the Cape or graphic design anywhere, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, they could go to my website, imagesbysaraphina.com, and all of my contact information's on there. I'm a huge fan of email, so hello@imagesbysaraphina.com. Just drop me a hello.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes, and really excited to have you join us on this second episode of season 2. For folks listening on your favorite podcast app, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching on YouTube, definitely smash that subscribe button over there. We're trying to get our numbers up. Smash it so hard you break your keyboard. Saraphina said she'll buy you a new one. We're always having a good time here on the Mass Business Podcast. If you know somebody that you think would be a great guest, have them get in touch through our website, massbusinesspodcast.com. And as always, as I like to say, don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you.
I'm waking up this morning, gonna grab myself a smile.
Thank you for listening to the Mass Business Podcast, where we focus on growing a small business and understanding networking and referrals. Don't forget to like on your favorite platform and share out this podcast. This show has been produced by Heather Grant, music by Celtic Kelly, all rights reserved. I'm your host, professional speaker, author, and word-of-mouth referral consultant, Matt Ward. Don't forget to live happy, smile a lot, and high five everyone around you.
I'm feeling alright. High five the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. High five the world. Make a difference today. High five the world. What a thing to say. Do you feel what I'm telling you? There's really nothing to it. It's just an attitude. Raise one in the air to put you in the mood.